Rosannie Filato. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I'm really happy to be here.
And I know that you have probably all the responsibilities. Like they didn't have anyone else to give them to, so they're like, just give them to Rosannie. She's not busy enough.
Well, I changed files recently.
I know.
You've heard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on social development before. Now I'm on public safety. So it's a big switch, but still a big responsibility.
For sure.
Yeah.
But you didn't only have that. You had a bunch of other things too, no?
Yeah, I had social and community development, women's issues, youth. I also had sports and leisure.
Do you still have those, or are you just doing public safety now?
Just public safety now.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was a switch with Nathalie Goulet,
Mhm.
and this happened in end of March of 2018. I was really happy to do the switch though, because a lot of times when we talk about public safety, you do talk a lot about more vulnerable populations.
Mhm.
So when we talk about seniors, for example, or social and community development, those are a lot of the partners that work with the SPVM, for
Mhm.
example, even the SIM. So our firefighters. So it was a nice transition.
Yeah. Plus, it gave you a bit more time.
Yes, there's a lot more, politics,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of work to be done on the ground.
For sure.
And there's a lot of community groups that do a lot of events. So that took up a lot of my time. It still does, especially in Villeray. But in terms of public safety, there's more, protocol meetings. It's a little different.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that change happened and that your agenda freed up, or else you wouldn't have been here. So.
Yeah, it might have been a little harder.
So I'm a little selfish, and that's fine. I appreciate that. This is you're actually at the midterm, right? 2 years.
Yes, it's been 2 years.
Honestly, I want to know how since 2017 your life has changed.
Oh my gosh. It's completely different for sure. So just to give a little context, I'm a lawyer. I worked in Villeray before being elected.
Okay.
I represented workers in the retail industry.
Yeah.
So I had pretty much an office job, even though sometimes I would go into the stores or I would go meet workers across Quebec. But being in the public eye now is just completely different.
Yeah.
There's a lot more pressure. For sure, the mission is the same though. It's one of the big reasons why I went into politics. For me, social justice is what really animates me, what really gets me going. And that's the reason why I went into the union movement and I represented workers, and why I jumped in politics. But the agenda, like you said, is hectic. Even if you say my agenda freed up, I found a little time. It's pretty busy. It's nights, weekends. It's all week for sure. But
See,
I love it.
This is what people don't understand. And you fall into this category where, and this is standard, I'm sure you've heard, and if you haven't heard it, you're probably going to hear it coming close to your second campaign, where the people that aren't that connected to what's going on in politics, but kind of have a little bit of their ear on the ground. The standard comments are, you guys show up every 4 years. Is there an election coming around? What's going on? And it's not true. And it's funny because I was doing the car ride stuff during the federal election, and I had Angelo Iacono, and he said something funny, and he's like, people that tell you that obviously aren't involved as much as you are, because if they say that and they don't see you, probably it means that they're not coming out as much, and
For
not
sure.
the other way around.
I think that's changing today, though. With social media now, it's a lot easier to show where we are, to take pictures, videos, etc., of what we're doing on a daily basis. For sure, there's still work that needs to be done for us to better communicate what we're doing on a daily basis.
But it's changing. See, you're lucky because you got elected at a period of time where pretty much everyone is on social media.
Yeah.
Demographically, the area has changed significantly. When we started in 2007, social media wasn't a thing. We got on Facebook like, I don't know, mid 2008, somewhere around there, because we knew that there was an election coming. And even then, obviously it goes with the voters that you have, right? And their identity and their demographic. Nobody used a computer. Like the vote that we have, they're obviously a little older, and nobody uses the social media thing, right? So you come at a time now where obviously the area has changed dramatically in the last 11 years since I've been there. And social media is a must. Like, you can't do politics. I don't see how you can do politics without it.
You're absolutely right. And we're lucky in a lot of ways because, people are more accessible now. But when you're asking how my life has changed in the past 2 years, the more accessible you are on social media, the more pressure you have as well.
Yeah.
So, you try to send out positive messages about what you're doing. There's a lot of criticism as well that comes on social media. And that makes it more difficult in some ways because you have a lot of pressure to just be available at all times. I'll get messages from citizens writing to me at any time of the day, night, weekends. And for me, I feel like I have to answer, and I do.
Okay.
I think it's important to be an accessible elected official. If we want, less cynicism in politics, if we want more people getting involved, if we want more people voting. But, it's tough. We talk a lot about, us ourselves promote the importance of conciliation, travail-famille, travail-école. Sorry for the French. Sometimes I think in French, speak in English. But, we often don't apply it to ourselves. We want to make sure that we answer everything very quickly.
Because you are the toughest. You are your toughest critic, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about, do you get any hatred stuff, like any negative stuff? How do you deal with that? Have you developed that hard shell that where it just comes and bounces right off and you don't care, or does it affect you?
It affects me.
Does it?
It affects me.
Oh,
yeah. I think it's important to say that, when something affects us, it does. Not all the time. It depends. I try to not delete, ban, hide any, more negative messages because I think it's important to show people, what's out there and to answer. I do try to encourage people publicly as well to be more constructive, to not just say that everything's bad, but to specifically address certain issues and be constructive to help me change things.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult for people, and I understand their frustration because over the years, there's been so much cynicism in politics.
Yeah.
And, we hear citizens in door to door, I'm sure you've heard it too, but saying, first of all, like you said, we only see you every 4 years, but also you're all the same. You promise things and then you don't do it. Which is why we need to always be out there and show the things that we accomplish. Sure, thanks. But, making promises, as we would say, and being transparent about what you can do and what you can't accomplish maybe on the short term is extremely important if we want people to keep voting.
But it's about being real too.
Yes.
And that's what I, over the course of my career in politics, that's what I understood almost immediately, that people relate to someone that is true.
Yep.
And that isn't always so political. I remember doing events and not talking politics at all, even during the campaign. It was the most mysterious thing for me, especially in the beginning. And I was surrounded by a team that had done elections like since Bourassa, like since the 80s.
Yeah.
So, it was just another game for them, right? Running a campaign and seeing them kind of coach us and guide us. It opened up my eyes because I thought that we were going to knock on doors, promote our platform, give the ideas.
Yeah.
And it is completely the opposite. We would knock on doors. Hey, how's it going? You're doing good. Oh, good. Oh, what do you cook? Smells good in here. What do you cook?
Yeah.
And just being yourself. And people would relate to that so
Park X,
much.
everything smells good,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. No, but in Villeray as
Villeray
well.
too, yeah.
And, I felt that people had a connection and you automatically drop that barrier. You knock on someone's door and they open, they're like, oh man, they see the pamphlets. They see, they're like, oh God, another politician. Like nobody's excited to open the door when the politician knocks. You know what I mean? That like very rarely do people look forward to, I wonder when they're going to pass by. I can't wait. You know what I mean? You had excited people like that. But in general, you have to understand that you're bothering people. You're knocking on their door. You're taking whatever, 5 minutes of their time. You might as well just have a laugh about it, right? And I realized that people relate much more to that kind of politician because I've seen the other type of as well, right?
Yep.
Where they come, hey, do you know our party? Do you know where? Nobody knows.
No, and people are fed up of hearing the same thing over and over again, that we're the party that's going to change things, regardless of the party, and regardless of the level. The platform, as you say, I think the general vision of the platform is important for people. They'll relate to the leader of the party, for example. But you're absolutely right that being a down-to-earth politician is what people want now.
Yeah.
People just want you to be honest, to be transparent. That's something I actually learned in in the union movement. You know, when I represented workers, a lot of them had issues with their boss, with their schedule, regardless. And when they would call, you know, sometimes we wouldn't be able to give them the answer that they wanted to hear, but we accompanied them in the process, and we found a way of finding the best solution for them. And I find that with citizens, it's the same. You know, getting an answer to them quickly is super important.
Of course.
And I think the process is way more important than, you know, the final result. If they know that you're going to be there when they need to be heard, that you're going to follow up with them very quickly, it means a lot to them. And like you said, just going to their events, for example, you know, in Villeray, we have a lot of Ruelle Verte parties. We have a nice community life, and people want to see us there. And like you said, they're not going to necessarily talk to us about, you know, an issue that they have. They just want us to be present. And it's also a question, you know, with their kids, for example, who they want to show good examples to. You know, you could become a politician. You don't have to look like a specific type of person to go into politics. So just showing up in your jeans, in your sweatshirt, or regardless.
But it's also the riding that allows that, right?
Yes.
You know, we both serve the riding where showing up necessarily in a suit and tie would kind of distance the person, because they're down to earth people. They're middle class, you know, hardworking people, and they relate. Like when they see you dressed comfortably, like, image has a lot to do with it, right?
It's true.
I mean, if you're going somewhere official, you dress up accordingly. But when you're doing, like you said, like the street festivals and the, you know, all those meetings in the Ruelle, showing up in a suit and tie perhaps isn't, you know, the most ideal.
No, exactly. You wanna be accessible. You want to be yourself. And I think you said it best. You know, citizens want to see you as yourself. They want to see you as human. They want to have a coffee with you. They want to have a drink with you. And I don't think it serves anybody to try to be somebody else or try to fit that box.
Yeah. Have you realized, maybe you haven't, that because of your engagement in politics and because you're like almost 100% of the time kind of immersed in that reality, that you're sort of in a little bubble, and you realize that, okay, you know, people don't really care, people don't really follow, like, let me just come out of that. Is it easy for you to distinguish that, or have you gone through that yet? Or
I definitely feel it. I feel that bubble effect. It's tough sometimes, you know, because you tend to not intentionally, but distance yourself from a lot of your closer friends that you've had.
But you have no choice either. I mean, that's your reality. You're required to be present all the time.
Yes, but it also, you know, what you're saying about being in your bubble and not necessarily relating. I think it's important to find a way to relate and to share those experiences that you're having, even if they don't.
But I was talking about like the political bubble. Like you're dealing with things, and because you're dealing with them, you kind of feel that everyone is hearing the same things on the news, or they're seeing the same things, or they're reading the same policy. And then you realize that nobody really cares, you know?
Yeah, you're right. It's true that sometimes, you know, especially if you're following your own social media feed, everybody agrees with you. Yeah. You know, a lot of times everybody agrees with you. And then you have to look a little further. You have to scope out and realize, okay, maybe everybody doesn't see things the way that I see them. And that's true for social media. It's also true for the media that you choose to follow. But I definitely feel like I'm in that bubble sometimes. And I think that's what's so great about being a municipal councillor and being able to do so much groundwork, is that, you know, going into those festivals and continuing to do door to door, even when it's not election time, you realize that you need to do that outreach work to get your message across.
Because the advantage you also have is that, first of all, you're in Montreal.
Yeah.
The people you represent are in Montreal. So you're constantly present. And you know, that thing you say about being that proximity government, it's true. You're that first door that they knock.
We're hands-on.
But you have that advantage of being present all the time. Whereas if you're sitting in Ottawa or in Quebec, you only have a number of days in the week that you can possibly grant to the different activities and to seeing people. That's why people probably see you less.
Yeah, so there's that physical presence. And I think also the concrete changes that you can make on the provincial and federal level. It's a lot of laws that can change things, which are very much important, but are on a more structural level and a more long-term level in general. On the municipal level, although we do talk about changing things on the long term, sometimes it's a question of a pothole, a stop sign for your family to feel safer, the speed limit. It's things that can be changed in the week, in the month, sometimes in days.
Yeah.
And it's concrete change. So it's nice because it shows you that you're there for the right reasons and you could affect change.
For sure. So tell me, so you're a lawyer. How do you go from being a lawyer to running for office? You had ran federally, by the way, I think, right? In 2015?
So 2015, I ran with the NDP in St. Leonard, St. Michel.
Wrong year.
Wrong year. Wrong year. Well, the borough itself, sorry, not the borough, but the riding of St. Leonard, St. Michel, has been liberal for forever, pretty much.
Yeah.
There was not many chances for me to win. I did it because, for me, it was important to get involved in politics. Like I said, I represented workers, and it was a year where the union movement and workers' rights were under attack.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people had encouraged me to run. We wanted more women, more young people in politics at the time. I think we still do.
Mm-hmm.
But they had encouraged me to run, and I chose to do it in St. Leonard, St. Michel, despite the fact that I didn't have many chances of winning. But when we speak of proximity and affecting change, for me, it was important to show citizens that you could be present and you could affect change, and there are alternatives at times. And, I did a 9-month campaign door to door. And that's actually what led me to the municipal level, because most of the time people wouldn't talk to me about the platform on the federal level.
Yeah.
They would talk to me about their parking. They would talk to me about the speed limit. They would talk to me about bike paths, about their trees. So I realized that if I really wanted to affect change and be closer to citizens, I would have to do it on the municipal level.
Yeah.
And so I lost in 2015 and then had the opportunity to run with Projet Montréal in 2017. And I chose to do it in the riding where I worked. So in Villeray. And very happy with that decision. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to be on the executive committee in a very, very transparent way. Wasn't necessarily expecting to win either.
Because you went against a very, very popular incumbent, right? Jesus Christ, her name?
Elsie.
Elsie.
Yes.
She's been our adversary for years.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot her name. Elsie Lefebvre, who was a member of the National Assembly. And that's who we beat in 2007 when we got in, actually. But she was only there for a short period. She came in a by-election, but very popular politician, very much loved, especially in Villeray. Everybody knew her. Everywhere we went, people loved her. And I got to be honest with you, I never thought that she would have ever lost that seat. So the results on the night of the election, I was like, what just happened? But it was just a general train wreck.
2017 on the municipal level, I think.
Not for you guys.
Surprised.
No,
absolutely.
For the Kader administration, it was just horrible.
I think it surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
Election night. I can say very honestly that I myself was surprised, but in the last 2 weeks of the election, I felt it.
You felt it. Yeah.
I felt that something was changing. I felt that people wanted change. People were very happy with Valerie's campaign and the way that it was very positive. It was axed on very concrete changes for the city. And, I talked a lot about transparency, honesty, and the importance for citizens of having those traits. And I think that that's one of the reasons that brought us to office. A lot of people weren't happy with the old administration's way of managing or hiding certain facts or some information. Even the old mayor was very much appreciated. I heard it in door to door. So he was appreciated. Elsie was extremely appreciated in Villeray.
Yeah.
But I think that people genuinely wanted change. Villeray is a district that changed a lot over the years.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
My mom grew up there. My grandmother as well on Saint-Hubert. So I saw the change in Villeray over the years. I worked there for the past 5 years before being elected. And, completely transformed. A lot more young families and people who are looking for a more secure a more secure district. That's why we lowered, for example, the speed limit to 30 kilometers everywhere. We have families, we have kids who want streets that are playable now. Same thing for les ruelles. So it completely changed over the years, and I think they saw with Projet Montréal and Valerie and administration that would transform the city to make it more local.
No, it was a shocker for many people. Even Annie Sanson, who was the borough mayor.
Yep.
Obviously, I had the privilege to work with her since 2007 when we got in, and same thing there. People were in love with her, and she was in office for so many years, even before we got in. I just think it was a general feeling of change that people wanted, right? I think the Kader ship went down, and he took along with him a lot of these key people. I had Haru Chitilian on the podcast.
Yes.
Same thing for him, Annie, and a lot of other people. And we were all thinking. I remember the night, and I was like, "What is going on here?" Not that we were for or against anyone.
Of course.
It's just that, at least not from my side, the way I was seeing things, I wasn't expecting that, and I was thinking, God, what just happened here? This is not horrible, but it was just a huge change from what people were expecting to happen, right?
I think when you say it's horrible, it's because you've been in politics and you see how devoted politicians are, regardless the party that they're in. People give their hearts and souls. They give up so much time with their families, with their friends. So regardless, yes, it's horrible when somebody loses when they were appreciated. And I still hear it about Elsie, about Annie. People still talk about them. I see Annie sometimes in certain events. You end up staying close to people. And it's not that they weren't, appreciated as people or what they did for the borough. But as you said, people wanted change, and that's okay. And we see it on all levels of government now. There's a lot of waves.
For sure. Well, we saw one in Quebec last year. So that... this is what I came to understand. Up until maybe 3-4 years ago, it was somewhat of, I don't want to say the older generation, but, the kids that were kids when I started politics are at a voting age right now. And what we've come to understand is that they don't necessarily think the same way their parents do, right? And I have a feeling that parties have, for a long time, taken those electors for granted, those communities for granted. And I think we're starting to realize that, look, there's a shift. There's a shift in ideas. There's a shift in patterns and in behaviors. We saw it in the federal election that just happened, the same thing. There's this group, there's this cluster of electors that are between the age of 18 to 35 that have absolutely nothing to do with the way their fathers or their mothers or the older generations used to vote. It's a huge drastic change, whereas I pretty much had the same ideology as my parents, but the following generation doesn't, the younger one, and that's what we're experiencing now, I feel. And we saw it at your municipal election, we saw it at our provincial election recently, and we saw it again at the federal election. So I think this is pretty much an eye-opener. I think going forward there has to be a new way to kind of dip into these groups and kind of reach out to them. Things have changed a lot.
I think so too. And I think a lot of young people want to see more positive in politics. We saw the old style of doing politics, which was always about saying what the other party didn't do or what we're going to do better. People want to hear what you're going to work on. And I think that young people need a cause. They need to see, for example, if we look at the environment, it's the big issue now, and with reason. We saw 500,000 people in the streets in Montreal. A lot of young people. And it's because of young people that now we're speaking more and more about the environment. I saw it with my cousin a few years ago, actually, while he was in high school. And he was telling me, my favorite subject right now is the environment. And that surprised me because that's not something we used to talk about in school. And politicians need to jump on the train. We can't impose our ideas on the newer generations. We need to hear them out and hear that we need to change things and do it in a positive way. But I completely agree that, the narrative has completely changed. And, young people won't vote just because they're told to go vote. And what I always try to encourage young people to do is to at least take a look at the platforms just to give them an idea. And despite the fact that I have my own political opinions, I always tell people, young people, go vote for what you believe in and who you believe in, regardless who that is. But that privilege that we have of being able to go vote is so important.
Do you feel that people actually follow the platforms though?
What do you mean by follow platforms?
You're going to put out a platform. You're going into an election in 2 years. You're going to have a platform. Do you honestly think people are going to sit and read it?
It depends. It depends. And I think that's up to us as politicians and as political parties to make sure that we're writing platforms and that we're communicating platforms, not in a super complex, detailed way, but in a way that we send a clear message to citizens, exactly what we're going to do, not big lines without targets, specifically what we're going to do. And I can tell you that, when I was responsible for social and community development, all the other social issues and sports, I took our platform and I made sure that in the next 4 years, I would work both in the borough and at the city level to make sure that we were going to follow those targets, not start from scratch and see what could be done, what was already being worked on. But I think we have that duty to make sure that, what we say to people, we're going to get done.
Yeah.
Do I think that citizens are going to read the platforms from A to Z? No. Yeah. No. Just like I didn't do the same in the past.
I never read a platform before I worked in politics. Never.
Of course. But that's why I'm saying I think it's important to have a platform.
But here's what I realized. In the last campaigns, whether it was provincial or federal, I felt that the youth connected more to the propositions in platform because of the social media tools that we have, right? So we were going door to door and we were realizing that the younger people actually knew what we were proposing and they had ideas or suggestions on those things that they saw pass by on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And the older generations, they were just stuck to whatever,
more tradition.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying it was so hard, both when I ran on the federal level and on the municipal level, when I was up against people who were appreciated, people who were known by their communities, respected, and who were with the same parties or who represented the same things for years. To get out there and to get myself known was very, very difficult. I wouldn't be able to do it through a platform, for example. So it was tough. But I think the way to do it is to communicate it very clearly, like you said, through social media, for example, and not to get not to start debating with specifics with the other parties, but really just to, speak out about what you want as a change. And I really think that young people, as you said, when you do door to door, they take the time to read it and they take the time to look at what you represent. They won't vote, maybe some, but they won't vote generally just by tradition or just because they need to believe in something.
Did you look at your numbers when you got elected? Did that younger demographic come out?
It did on a municipal level. I'm not sure in Villeray specifically, but it did come out.
Because that's the other challenge.
Yeah,
reaching out to the young, like the 18 to 35, getting them out to vote has always been a challenge. One thing we failed at, and I've said it many times on the podcast, was to get more youngsters involved in politics. We tried. Maybe we didn't try hard enough. But if there's one thing that we completely failed at, and I'm talking about us, not the party or the government, like us locally, I don't know why we struggled.
I think as much as we don't necessarily read the entire platform, I think that by sharing our values as parties, it helps connect with young people. At our party at Projet Montréal, we have a lot of young members. And I think one of the things that helps is that we're a lot of young elected officials. Myself, seeing Valerie, who was young and who was up against, a mayor that was really known and respected, that's what, enticed me to get involved with Projet Montréal and to run. When somebody who's young inspires you and is accessible.
Yeah, you follow.
Yeah.
How's that first year? Because like you mentioned, there's a lot of young people that ran in the team that were inspired by Valérie Plante. You come to, you come into power, and did you, I guess you realize that practically nobody had any experience on the side of the administration, right?
Well, we had a few elected officials who had been there for years, but in the opposition.
Exactly.
On the municipal level, there's the boroughs and there's, the municipal
City
level,
hall, yeah.
city center. So a lot of people had experience within their boroughs, to manage budgets. I think a lot of that experience helped us as new elected officials to manage the borough, but also to manage at
Do
city
you
center.
feel that transition happened smoothly, or it was kind of like a culture shock to be there and to see what you had to take care of suddenly, and you're like,
Well, there's definitely a culture shock.
Yeah.
And I think we felt it with the services as well. Every administration, every party, every person is different than another. We're all human and we work differently. We've been told that a lot by a lot of people who work at the city. We don't rubber stamp. It's just not something that we do. So we take the time to look at everything, to read it, to challenge. And that, I would say that was tough at the beginning.
Yeah.
Very honestly, it was tough because, we wanted change. And like a lot of Montrealers, we wanted to change things quickly.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't change everything in a day,
there
in
was
a
a
week, in a
reality
month.
check. Yeah.
There's a reality check for sure. And, that's why we're working now at the city on a mobilization program with the city workers, with all the employees at the city, because it's structural change that we want on the long term. So you have to embed your vision with the people that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
and we have city workers who are great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, who are, extremely patient as well. And who, if they want to adhere to our vision, or they do adhere to our vision, we have to find ways of working together. And that first year served that purpose, I would say. And now, we've become a team, we've become families, we all work together, and it's easier to get things going. That's why we see more of the projects coming out now or in the past year.
Because I sometimes put myself in their shoes, and it must be so difficult to work at the city. Like, I mean, just driving through the city sometimes can be so frustrating.
Of course.
So frustrating.
Of course. And, I know we're perceived as a party who, only speaks about bikes or bike paths, or, it's sometimes easy for the media to portray it that way. And yes, it's something that we want to encourage. I can tell you that I've driven my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had access to a metro. I grew up in St. Leonard, so I didn't have that same privilege as a lot of people who lived right by a metro and was able to do that. So I do understand that frustration. Now it's finding a way to make sure that we stop putting pedestrians, cyclists, and people who drive cars in confrontation, and find ways to have better mobility for everybody. But it's tough.
It's tough because the infrastructure wasn't created to have this sort of coexistence, right, between cyclists and drivers. So you have to kind of just change everything. I remember, was I still in university? I think I had just finished when they changed Maisonneuve, and they took away the 2 lanes.
Yep.
And they had a bike path.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember wintertime, there was like literally not an inch of snow in the bike path. And the streets were just chaotic.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what the hell is going on here?
So you see, that's one of the best examples of distinguishing, or of having to distinguish the perception and the reality of things. We keep getting told that we take the snow off bike paths before the street. The reality is that the machines that we use for the sidewalks and the bike paths is the same.
Yeah.
Versus, for the bike paths and the streets is the same. So if we pass through a street that wasn't programmed to do the bike path at the same time, or the sidewalk at the same time, we'll do it at the same time if we have the machinery there.
Yeah.
It's a question of efficiency too. So we end up doing it at the same time, but people see the bike path without snow.
It's just funny.
I know it's funny, but it's really a question of perception.
Here's another funny story. Because our office was on St. Lawrence, right? So right across, we had Jarry Park.
Yeah.
And I remember one day it was just heavy snowstorm. Like, it was crazy. You couldn't see in front. And, downstairs there was the Espresso Mally. They sell coffee machines and stuff. So the owner was out with his snowblower trying to make space for the customers to come in and everything. So I was coming to work and I stopped. We're talking. And he's like, God damn this weather. The typical complaining, right? And then at some point we look into the park. There's snow everywhere now. You can barely walk. And we look into the park, and they're cleaning the paths that are
In the
crossing
park?
into the park. So it was like this moment where time kind of froze and we're both kind of staring at it. And I look over to him and he looks over to me and we didn't say anything, but we kind of understood what we were both thinking.
Yeah.
We're like, well, this is it. You know?
It's really tough. And, I say it.
I just found it funny.
I know snow removal is not perfect and it's not an easy, it's not necessarily easy to manage.
Yeah.
There was a first politique du déneigement that came out right before our administration came in. We just adapted it now. And, I always try to be very humble when I talk about snow removal because saying that it's perfect and saying that our streets and our sidewalks are perfect would just not be true.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find better methods. And one thing that I always try to pass as a message, with climate change, there's a lot more ice now than there was before. It's hot, cold, it rains, it snows all at once.
And it obviously damages more the streets.
It damages more and we need new equipment. We need different equipment. Montreal was very good at taking out
Didn't you have like that
snow.
icebreaker or something?
Yep.
Is that functioning? Is it out or?
It's functioning. Okay. So we had it for the first time last year. We call it a croque-glace.
Yeah.
So that's to get the ice off the sidewalks.
The crusher.
The ice crusher. It's a good name. Yeah. It's a good name. We have more this year, actually. But it's the type of equipment that we need to use more often and that we need to integrate into our practices. Mm-hmm. So we can't expect there to be climate change and for the city and the boroughs to have perfect snow removal. Yeah. We work with contractors too. It's not our blue-collar workers necessarily that do the work. So, it's a lot of change for everyone. But we're working on it.
I want to talk to you about a specific file in Villeray, the Centre La Jeunesse.
Yes.
And I want to talk to you because I'm a little bit disappointed, not because of how it's going. It's just the way that whole file ended up. And just to put people in context, the Centre La Jeunesse, very important center in the middle of Villeray, in the heart of Villeray. Over 250,000 people went through that center every year, different services, different organizations, etc. I remember back in, must have been probably 2015, end of 2015, I think, or middle to end of 2015. The school commissioner came to see us, whom you know very well.
Yes.
And he told us, listen, we're looking at our numbers. We're projecting that we're going to have a huge issue in our schools. There's a dramatic increase in childbirth in Villeray. We're going to need space in our schools. And he said, we need to take over the Centre La Jeunesse.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to be against a project like that, right? Creating a school and facilitating all that environment, you can't be against it. And the idea with him was that as soon as a project would be ready, that we would push it in order for the government to give the green light, which obviously we backed up. We backed the project. There was one condition, though, and we wanted the Centre La Jeunesse to not disappear, right? We needed to find a viable solution to where we were going to move the Centre La Jeunesse, and that's where the old Chinese hospital came into question. So it was a consistently back and forth. Obviously, the Centre La Jeunesse was made aware. And then I think it was before you guys got elected. It was in 2016. We were dealing with the CDC de Villeray. So this is kind of like an umbrella organization that houses a series of organizations in Villeray. They do a fantastic job. They came to see us, and at first we found it funny that they came on behalf of the Centre La Jeunesse. But in any case, we appreciated the fact that there was like a cohesiveness in the area. And they came to us and they had proposed two different things. The first solution was that the health department doesn't sell it because they wanted to sell it. We were at a period where the government was trying to limit its the public spending. Mm-hmm. So they want to get rid of it because they're holding on something that is used for nothing, and they're spending millions of dollars just to maintain it.
Yeah.
So they want to get rid of it. So the first solution was let's not get rid of it. They came to us to ask us if it's possible for the health department to transfer the asset to the education department, and for the education department to kind of grant it to the community. We automatically knew what the answer was going to be to that, and that's exactly what it was. But the second solution is exactly what was followed, was that they wanted us to kind of see if there was a possibility for the health department to postpone the deadline for the sale, and to see if there's a way that the city can come in and buy it, and then the city would obviously offer it to the community. We thought that was a great idea. We managed to
offer it to the community as a school or as a
to offer it for a community for services
center.
exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't specified, but it was just for a community vocation, right? So we managed to postpone to extend the deadline. It gave the time to the city to make a proposition, and that's when you guys were elected. And it went through. So the city purchased it. The idea, though, was that was going to be the where the Centre La Jeunesse was going to transfer, and it's sad because now I saw the news. It went, I think it was a week or two ago that I think you posted it.
Yes.
And it's going to be converted to social housing, which I have nothing against social housing, and we all know that, especially in that area, there's a huge need. But the problem is that the Centre La Jeunesse is going to lose so many resources. I spoke very recently with the director of the Centre La Jeunesse for some other thing, and the conversation led there. And they're going to merge with another organization that is really further east in Villeray. So demographically and in terms of services, there's a different reality. And I asked her, I go, well, look, at least the services are there, the organizations are going to survive. And she's like, well, not really. No, we can't transfer everyone there, right? It's we don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but for sure we're going to lose certain things, and that upset me. It disappointed me because it wasn't an agreement. I mean, nothing was put on paper, but the understanding that we had while working with the community groups was that we were going to do our share to make sure that it stays, so that we can finally make something of that building that's been empty 20 years, whatever the number is. But there's no conditions, but we wanted that it would be reserved not exclusively, but primarily for the Centre La Jeunesse. And I remember the CDC had even made plans to incorporate entirely the Centre La Jeunesse and find additional space to do whatever. I think they were looking into commercial spots. It was like a mix of things, and that was perfect. And when I saw the news come out, I was like, God damn. I'm like, what exactly happened there? So the Centre La Jeunesse, what's going to happen?
So when we came in, well, actually during the campaign, we spoke a lot about Le Centre La Jeunesse, where it would go. It wasn't up for sale at the time. So even during the campaign, so in the fall.
In 2017, it was.
Well, it wasn't publicly.
No. Nothing was public.
Okay.
Nothing. We knew because backstage we knew what was going on.
Okay.
And we were trying to kind of create as much room as possible for the community to get organized and propose something.
So, as you said, it's 20 years that it's been vacant, and I know there was a lot of plans to buy it. There was a lot of projects.
Yeah.
When we were asked during the campaign, what was our plans for Le Centre La Jeunesse? We wanted to be as realistic as possible. And, we spoke a lot about being transparent. For me, it was important to be transparent. And I kept saying, if for 20 years, nothing has happened, despite all the plans and despite everything that we know, I did not think that it was realistic that, the Centre La Jeunesse would have to leave very quickly and have a space for them à l'ex-hôpital chinois right away.
No, of course not.
For me, it just... It wasn't possible. So we had proposed to maybe find another space, or maybe to have two spaces for Le Centre La Jeunesse, because as you know, a lot of their activities will be in churches as well, or will be not necessarily au Patro Le Prévost, but they'll go to other locations. So from the very beginning, we never, spoke about l'ex-hôpital chinois as being an option. And as you said, social housing in Villeray and in the borough in general, we're the third borough with the most needs in terms of social housing. We got on the file right away as soon as we were elected. I met with Émilie. I met with a lot of the community groups. Some of the groups which were more regional, which didn't work only in Villeray, like the FADOC had told us, we can find another location. There's no issue. And the Patro Le Prévost wasn't necessarily in the cards at the very beginning. We just wanted to find the best solution to maintain the organizations together, because that's something that they had always requested, always asked for. A few months later, we had some discussions with Le Patro, Le Prévost to see if it's something that they would be open to. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of renovations that need to be done as well. But it's a place where we would be able to keep all the organizations together, which is still the plan. Just so you know, we want to keep them all together.
Okay. Will it have the room to house everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the delay now is March 2020.
Yeah.
For the CSTM to take back Le Centre La Jeunesse to make a school, which is going to be a transition school, by the way. So all the schools that have too many kids are going to be transitioning there at Le Centre La Jeunesse. In March 2020, all the organizations need to be relocated. And the project for social housing is going to be about 2023.
Okay.
So just to show you the delay that there is between relocating the organizations and having them in a space, both on a short-term and a long-term level, it wouldn't be possible in the ex-Chinese hospital. But as soon as the for sale sign went up on the Chinese hospital, the ex-Chinese hospital, we definitely had our eye on it because it's 20 years that it's been vacant. So it was a prime location to do social housing. We were never close to having something that's mixed. Even, when we bought it, we said it would be for social and community housing if possible. We're working with l'Association des locataires de Villeray. And for them, for sure, the need is there. If we could do social housing everywhere and all the community groups will have a location, it was ideal for everybody.
Yeah.
So on the long term, what we're seeing for Le Centre La Jeunesse is a majority of the groups that are going to be at Le Patro, Le Prévost, and Espace Famille Villeray is going to be au Chalet de Normanville.
Okay.
So there's money from La Ville Centre that's going to the renovation of Le Chalet de Normanville.
Okay.
So Espace Famille is going to be there. And it's something that they've been asking for years, To
be located there or to get another location?
To be located there.
Okay.
Because the Chalet de Normanville, they've been using it for certain activities, but, they would go through Le Centre La Jeunesse or Le Chalet de Normanville. So having their own space for families is something that's great. And it's not far from Le Patro, Le Prévost, so they'll be able to use both.
Yeah.
And the 660 Villeray, which you probably remember, that's going to be more administrative organizations. So la CDC that you were talking about, l'Association des locataires de Villeray are going to be there. So we're going to have offices there, Espace Famille Villeray, which is going to be at the chalet, which is going to be renovated, and Le Patro, Le Prévost. And I've always said, there's some people, some citizens that were worried about people having, being used to Le Centre La Jeunesse that's always been at the same space.
For sure, yeah.
And if we need to adjust, if we need to get des navettes, for example, to get people who are more in the west to go more to the east, it's something we can definitely look at.
Yeah, because the location was ideally for the service that they offered. I mean, people would always walk because it's smack in the middle of Villeray, right?
Nobody would have, nobody wanted to get rid of Le Centre La Jeunesse. Even the school board, I think, there's a need. I think parents also want, yes, we have strong community-based groups that are at Le Centre La Jeunesse, but people also needed a place for their kids to go to school.
Absolutely. Look, there's absolutely no one that can contest that request from the schools. I don't know what's going on with the project. I don't know if it was approved. We were in discussion with the education minister, but then we went to elections and obviously we lost. So I don't know where that file ended up. I don't know if it went through, if they're actually going to move forward in creating that school or...
I don't believe that they got the funding, but they are going ahead with the
project.
project.
That was the next thing in line for us.
Yeah.
After this, so
I don't believe that they got the funding. No. And, we're definitely going to need, we're working really closely to the community-based groups. We're really going to need, the provincial government and the federal government to be on. They have to be on board too.
They have to move. Look, all the schools, they have those extensions in the back. I mean, it looks like a trailer park. It's ridiculous.
They've made them more modern than the past.
Okay, but
it's still not ideal.
It's not a situation that's ideal.
But I'm speaking about our schools, but also our community-based groups. I think there's a big lack of funding in general. We can tell it's not only in Villeray where it's difficult to find a location for community-based groups. And there's a lot that are being kicked out of where they were for years. And
it also happened in Park X, by the way, before you came in at the William Hingston.
Yep.
The school commission took over, I think, 1 or 2 floors, and all the organizations had to leave.
It's something Mary Darrows talks about constantly.
Yeah.
And it comes from a lack of from a lack of funding. And at the borough and at the municipal level, we don't have all the funds. And that's why we work very closely with, the provincial and the federal level. The mayor, Plante, actually wrote a letter to the provincial government to ask for more funds to renovate Le Patro Le Prévost and to renovate actually one of the churches that we have in Villeray, Saint-Vincent-Ferrier. Ideally, what we would have wanted was un pôle aîné. So because there's La Maison des Grands-Parents de Villeray, which is right near the church, we would have had our pôle aîné. And that's something that the groups were very optimistic about. But because of the church and the condition of the church, it wasn't possible. So for now, March 2020, all the groups are going to be au Patro, except those who are au 660 Villeray. But we're really optimistic. The Patro Le Prévost and Émilie au Centre La Jeunesse.
Yeah, no, I spoke to her. I mean, look, for her, I mean, she just wanted a solution. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, if they're going to have to restructure or if they're going to reorganize, if it's going to become one organization that's going to take them all in, or if they're going to exist independently within the Patro, or how's it going to work?
We're letting them
figure it out. Yeah.
We're letting them figure it. We're definitely accompanying them in the process, but we don't want to impose a structure on them. They're constantly in discussions with Le Patro Le Prévost. We're seeing if we can get some help with a firm as well to help. It's very legal sometimes, getting that structure going, what's best for them. We're going to let them work it out. For us, for sure, we just don't want their, any services to be diminished.
Exactly.
Definitely not. It's going to be a little tougher to develop services in the next year because it's going to be a transition period for everybody. And that's why we're really hoping that we can get the provincial, the federal government on board to help us out to renovate those buildings, but also to help in terms of development. Yeah.
Well, let's hope everything turns out okay, because, we were pushing for a completely different project. And I think it's something that the Centre La Jeunesse obviously wanted. I mean, you want your own space, right?
Yeah.
And I understand sometimes there's factors that you can't control. And there's other needs too, like social housing, of course. But at the same time, and this was the argument that usually came out from the community groups with respect to social housing. Even though it's very important, it's also equally important to have the actors in place locally to help people come out of that situation where they would require social housing.
Both are essential, definitely. Exactly. And that's why we wanted to make sure that with the deadlines, with the uncertainty as well, with l'ex-hôpital chinois, that we were able to conserve our community-based groups, find them a location very, very quickly. And also, if possible, purchase l'ex-hôpital chinois. When we purchased it, when we bid it, we didn't necessarily have a plan of saying it was exclusively social housing or it would be both. We were looking at all the options. We were happy to see that it was for sale very quickly after we were elected. And, when the deadline was confirmed by the CSDM that they would have to move very quickly, we didn't have a choice. We hadn't even purchased l'ex-hôpital chinois yet. So, we have to be realistic. And if we didn't want any organizations on the street, we needed to act very quickly to accompany them. So that's what we did.
Let's talk a little bit about the budget. Our mayor is a little spender. Is she?
Well, it's normal to spend. I think it's normal to spend.
Spending has gone up. I think I took down some notes. 17% since 2017.
Yeah, which is
record number spending.
Yeah. I think what's important is to make sure that we're spending in the right places, that we're spending responsibly. It's easy to talk about that we're spending too much, or it's a little more difficult to say where we would cut if we would have to cut. We're investing in all of our priorities. Mobility. We announced, extra money going into more crossing guards, for example. But I think it's normal. I think a lot of the messages were a little, what's the word? Transformed by the media and by certain people to make us look irresponsible. La Chambre de Commerce supported us. A lot of organizations like Bâtir son quartier.
But you also have very limited maneuverability. I mean, the only thing that you can control are essentially property taxes, right? And that's where it's mostly felt. and I mean, Mayor Plante said that she's going to only increase based on inflation.
Yep.
But I was looking very quickly, and the buildings that have multi-unit buildings, for example, like over 6 apartments or whatever like that, the average, we're talking about 4.5% or 4 to 5% increase. So, I mean, you're representing an area where there's a lot of those buildings, right?
Yeah.
In Villeray. Have people been aware that there's an increase coming?
Well, we still controlled it. In the borough, we have a certain control as well on our local taxes.
Mhm.
So to make sure that we align our local tax and the city tax so that it only goes up by inflation. That's what we did in the borough. There's certain boroughs where it went a lot higher. Those boroughs made a conscious decision to go way above the inflation rate.
Mhm.
That wasn't our choice.
Okay.
In our borough, but
Because I looked at the boroughs that are getting the highest increase, and unfortunately, it's also the ones that have most of these multi units, like over 6 floors or 7 floors, like Côte des Neiges, for example.
Yeah. Well, there's Côte des Neiges, there's Montreal North, there's certain boroughs.
Obviously downtown, but I mean downtown only makes sense.
Yeah.
But we're talking about mostly residential.
There's certain things we can control at the city level.
Yeah.
There's others that we can't, and we wanted to make sure to limit the hike to inflation, as you said. But when it comes to la valeur foncière, so the property value, that's not something that we can control.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Plante, for months, actually, since she was elected, has been speaking to the provincial government to change the way that our fiscal system works.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually a negotiation that was done very recently with the provincial government in order... Sorry, I'm thinking in French again.
It's okay. It's all right.
So, pour le pacte fiscal.
Mm-hmm.
So, to see how we can get... I can't speak in French and in English. It's so bad.
You can do it. It's okay.
I can do it
you can do whatever
in French.
You want.
Okay. So to get le point de TVQ, so we're going to get the augmentation du point de TVQ.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the negotiation that was done just last month. So that's very good news. It's going to bring more revenues to Montreal without having to base ourselves only on la valeur foncière d'une maison.
Yeah. And you also requested that the government grant you the possibility to go above the debt ratio, right? Right now you're at 120%, and you want that for the next 7 years?
Yeah, so I'm less of an expert on the policies. It's more Benoit Doré that was doing it. But yes, we asked on the medium term to change the debt ratio, so to be a little more lenient. But one thing for sure is that toutes les agences de notation said that everything's okay. We also got 150 million from the provincial government because of Réflexe Montréal, so that's very good news. But although it sounds like we're spending a lot, we are. It's in line with our priorities, but it's also done in a very responsible way. I don't think La Chambre de Commerce would have supported us if we weren't spending our money responsibly. I think everybody that backed us is the proof that we're spending it responsibly. And, we're spending more than any other administration in terms of our infrastructures, in terms of social housing. If, very respectfully, if other administrations had done it in the past, we wouldn't be forced to do it now.
But that comes as no surprise, because I remember towards the end of Denis Coderre's mandate, he had come out publicly and said that, he didn't want to shock anyone, but we need a road infrastructure programs that would last easily 20 years in Montreal. So,
definitely. And I think we see it with the number of roads that are being redone.
But here's the problem, though. Like you look at the downtown core of Montreal, which is, your main revenue generating vehicle. You have a street like St. Catherine that has been closed for a year now?
Has it been a year?
There was an article actually. Was it? I can't remember where I read it. I think it was CJAD. They were describing downtown as nearly a ghost town, and it's true. I mean, you drive down. I mean, I cross through Montreal quite often. St. Catherine it's literally a ghost town. It's been closed for at least a year, I think, or they're moving. I'm not sure how they're progressing.
Yeah.
But what's happening with all those businessmen? They're like, how do you convince them that things are going to be okay? They're running a business.
Well, it's definitely tough, but we're at the point where these these infrastructure changes are necessary, we've put in place programs that are actually retroactive for our businesses. So if they're in an area where there's a lot of construction, now they have access to programs where they can be compensated for that. Our businesses in Villeray, on Jarry, for example, who went through very difficult times. St. Denis as well, who are going through very difficult times. It's 2 years, will actually have access to some form of compensation. And it was actually retroactive. So to 2016, it was one of the first measures we put in place. Yeah. We know it's tough for them. I think we need to be there to accompany them during the process. But in the end, once those changes are made, it's going to benefit their business as well. If we transform the street as well, not redo it exactly
what's
how it was
happening
before.
on St. Catherine? How is it transforming? Is it going to be maintained as it was, or
no
pedestrian? What are you doing over there?
No, it's not fully pedestrian, but it's going to be partly. It's going to be completely transformed. So a little bit how you saw in the past when we would redo. Why I say we. When the city of Montreal would redo streets, the sidewalks would be exactly the same. We're trying to make them a little larger. We want them to be more animated, more benches, for example. We want more saillies de trottoir. So to make sure that it's safer. We want our streets to be more pedestrian. It's the example of St. Catherine, but it won't be closed off completely.
Well, I hope not. I mean, the businesses rely on traffic going through there.
In some places, yes. But in some places, businesses ask us to have less car traffic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. A couple of weeks ago, my wife, she took the girls. She's like, let's go downtown. I want to go to the Eaton Center. I get allergic when I hear that. But I'm like, okay, let's just go shopping downtown with the girls. We left. We drove into downtown. It was chaotic. It was hectic. We went around maybe 20 minutes, and we ended up coming back home. That was the girls fell asleep, obviously, in the car. And I'm like, well, the girls are sleeping now. Let's just go back home. I'm sure I'm not the only one that this happens to.
But people want an experience now. And that's why I'm saying, you're shocked that when I say a lot of businesses don't necessarily want car traffic everywhere. It's because people want an experience when they shop now. They don't necessarily just want to park, buy what they want, and leave. They want milieu de vie, as we say. Yeah. We see it on the Castelnau, for example.
But the Castelnau is a residential area. We're talking about the downtown core of Montreal. How are you going to make it inviting for people to come into Montreal, to its downtown core, and spend whatever amount of money or whatever amount of time going around walking? Like, once they're there, I can understand. Walk around, have that experience, but you first have to get there.
Yeah, but not everybody gets there by car.
Yeah.
A lot of people take the metro. A lot of people live downtown as well. Yeah. But yes, some people want to come from elsewhere than downtown or other areas and want to take their cars. There is tons of parking downtown. There is. Some people want to be right in front of the store, for example. That's not always possible. Sometimes you do have to walk, but people do enjoy that experience on the street, walking around way more than just going to the business, parking. I can send you the numbers after the podcast. We have an old soutien aux élus who's not with us anymore, but who did the study to compare, people who take their cars to shopping centers, people who don't. We heard that argument a lot for Le Marché Jean Talon as well. Yeah. When we took out a few parking spots to make, the La Place Shamrock. And the stats versus, the perception of things are two very different things. There's underground parking at Marché Jean Talon.
Yeah, that I've been there,
which is not expensive at all.
At all.
You could also get there by metro, but I do understand that some people want to take their car to be able to put things inside. But the stats are actually very surprising in terms of people who take their cars or people who take other methods of transportation to go shopping and to go for the experience.
Everywhere I go with my wife, I kind of pray that one of the kids will fall asleep so I can stay in the car with the kids.
Why?
Because I just don't have the patience, especially
the patience to shop or the patience to find parking.
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
So you understand my situation.
Yeah.
I have a wife that likes to go shopping.
Yeah.
I don't like driving, and by all means, I hate going into Montreal now. So I'm praying. I'm driving. I'm like, please, why don't you just fall asleep, please, 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 so we don't have to carry you. And then I have to kind of propose.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
But if you
Listen,
live,
sweetie, if you want, I can stay back with a kid in the car. It's not a
but
problem for me.
if you live off the island, it might be a different reality.
Well, it's true, right? Because the suburbs now are all being developed in a way where if you don't work or if you have no business in Montreal,
Mhm.
you just don't go.
Yeah, but we also want to encourage our local businesses and Montrealers to be able to shop in Montreal and to stay in Montreal. That's how
Mhm.
you make sure that our businesses flourish, and
Mhm.
that's what most people want now. They want to
Yeah.
be able to walk to get their stuff. It's not ideal for everybody, depending on where you live on the island. It's what we try to encourage, but I think it's what we're seeing in other cities as well.
Mhm.
Um, in other cities, they're trying to develop what we call les quartiers à échelle humaine. So whether you're on the island, off the island, people don't necessarily want to transit all the time. We try to find to make mobility more accessible for people, so they don't always have to be so dependent on cars. And I told you at the very beginning, I myself would like to be less dependent. If you live in an area where you have access to public transportation, you're more inclined to take it.
Yeah.
But it's not everybody who has that access, and I think that's where there's a lack of investment for the past few years.
Yeah. I know you have to go. I want to close it up. I want to
Yeah.
close it up because there's a lot of stuff brewing in politics
Mhm.
in Quebec, and there's a few things happening, especially coming from the city of Montreal, that are kind of going countercurrent. Obviously, Bill 21, highly spoken in our policy, but then there's also Bill 40, which is a provincial bill to kind of ban school boards, right, and the way
Mhm.
that school boards are functioning. On both those bills, the city of Montreal kind of suggested that they're against them. Um, what is the message that you think you're sending as the biggest city in Quebec, kind of going against the provincial policy? And Bill 21, just for everyone listening or watching, it's obviously being contested now, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But regardless, whatever happens, I'm suspecting that the government is going to invoke the notwithstanding clause, and it's
Yeah.
going to be applied. Are you planning on applying these measures in Montreal? I mean,
So one thing is clear. We've never called to civil disobedience on any end, and we don't have the intention to. I think with Bill 21, we sent a strong message. I was with the mayor actually and the leader of the official opposition when we spoke about Bill 21. We have a reality in Montreal where we have a lot of immigrants, we have a lot of minorities,
well, it
and
clearly doesn't exist anywhere else in Quebec,
uh,
or very few cities actually.
well, we had to send a
Mhm.
strong message, and just in terms of social justice, making sure that everybody feels welcome in Montreal. It was important for us to do so, and I think historically, it's one of the only times where, the mayor and the leader of the official
Mhm.
opposition sent such a strong message. Now to say that we're contesting the Quebec government, I think we need to take that leadership role
Mhm.
sometimes. That doesn't mean that we don't have a good relationship
No,
with the
but yeah, that's not what I suggested.
Okay.
It's just in a way that there's a message coming to the government from its biggest city,
Yep.
and they're kind of standing united. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no contest here at the city of Montreal. I mean, no, there's nothing contradicting here. You're united in a common movement against these policies, and I'm just wondering from the side of the government. I mean, are they looking into it favorably? Are they telling you, look, just sit down, relax, let us take over, let us do our job, kind of thing? I mean,
Well,
because you do have a significant voice, right, in Quebec. You do represent the biggest city in
we
Quebec.
do. We do. And I would say we do see their openness in changing sometimes. It was the same with the Cannabis Act,
Yeah.
actually, the legalization of cannabis. We sent out a strong message saying that it couldn't be applied the same way everywhere in Quebec than it could in Montreal. It just became legal. We have 60% of people who are tenants, and actually now it's officially banned everywhere on the territory. The public health department in Quebec said it's really not a good idea to ban everywhere. We respected that, but when the mayor and Sylvain Caron from the SPVM went to Quebec to say this is going to be a problem. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult to apply on the Montreal territory. They heard us out. They gave us, a specific clause in Montreal where we can apply it differently in parks, for example. So the message is getting out there. I think we need to keep having that leadership role. Saying that we'll apply it or we won't apply it is difficult. We're speaking about individuals, and it's up to them to see how they're going to apply it. We don't want to ask people to not apply the law. I don't think that's responsible as an administration, but it was important for us to.
But look, let's talk hypothetically now. And I know politicians hate hypothetical stuff, but say it goes through, right? And I'm talking about Bill 21, all right?
Yeah.
Will you apply it? Are you going to tell?
Well, Bill 21 it's already applied.
It's being contested, so.
It's still applicable. It's still applicable. And, it's very limited how it applies to Montreal. It'll apply to police officers, for example. Yeah. Right now, it doesn't impact anybody individually from what we've seen so far. So it's not up to us. We would be asking other people from, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about any school board. It's up to them to decide how they will apply it or not. I guess we'll see when it's contested how it comes out. But for the time being, it's applied. Yeah. And the mayor has always said, we can't, as leaders, as elected officials, ask people to not respect the law. But we do understand that some people will be contesting it, and it's their right to do so.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting. Like, I have a feeling that there's this disparity being created between the main cities and the regions in Quebec, and it's unfortunate.
I don't know that it's being created. I think there are realities that are different, and I think we need to all exchange more and better understand our different realities, and that's why it was so important for us to speak out. Not do politics, but speak out with the opposition on Bill 21.
Because I've seen it. I remember once we brought a group of Indian Sikhs to the National Assembly of Quebec. Okay. It was as though time froze still. People were like, what is going on?
It's, for us, especially if we were talking a lot about young people, before. For young people, you look at kids in elementary school, in high school. It's a non-issue in Montreal. And I can't say that I know how it's applied anywhere else because I'm a Montrealer, born and raised. So
that was an eye-opening thing for me because I didn't know how things worked elsewhere. But when I was actually physically there and I saw people's reaction, I was like, okay, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Like even the National Assembly security, they're like, what's this? What's going on?
Really?
I'm like, this is my group of 50 Sikhs. They're like, we didn't know what Sikhs were. I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, it was like everything froze still. I was like, everybody just paused. They're like, what is happening in Parliament?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, relax.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, because a lot of people are hurt through this.
Oh, for sure.
Feeling that, they can't work. They're not integrated because of what they wear, because of, what they practice in terms of religion, how they look. It's really, really unfortunate. And, we see it right now in Quebec. Il y a une pénurie de main-d'œuvre.
Yeah.
We need people to work on top of everything else. And I understand that, there's a droit acquis clause. But it's unfortunate that we don't speak more about inclusion rather than what divides us. Even now we end up speaking about how Montreal and les régions are divided. And, it might be the reality, but it's unfortunate that we don't talk more about how we're similar rather than how we're different.
I agree with you 100%. I'm not going to take up more of your time. I know that you have to head back to City Hall. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's a
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
It was really fun. Thank you.
You're going to come back. You're going to come back because your elections are coming. So
it's true.
I think I'm going to do something for the municipal like I did with the federal election. I think it's going to be fun.
That would be fun. I'm in. Count me in.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.